Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear us in the auditorium. Let us know if we're having any technical issues. It's always kind of interesting to do these via Zoom, and we wish we could all be there with you today in Polson. But my name is Taylor, and my colleague Keegan is here with me on this Zoom Ed Talk. And we're with the Montana Main Street program, which is housed within the Montana Department of Commerce here in Helena. And we work with 34 communities across the state of Montana to help them. We essentially provide technical assistance to help them establish Main Street organizations and create a community vision for how they want to revitalize their downtowns. And so we provide technical assistance and a variety of other resources along with really small or fairly small grants, $5,000 to $10,000 to get those projects up and going. And then we're also the coordinating program for Montana in terms of the national network. So we're kind of the hub for Main Street efforts in the state. And we're one of 45 coordinating programs across the United States and part of this group of 1,600 Main Street communities across the country. So we're plugged into both the local Montana network and then also a national network. And I'm not sure if everybody in the room knows this, but Polson was one of our latest communities to join the Montana Main Street program right before the pandemic hit in early 2020. So we're really interested in kind of connecting with folks to get those efforts going. You guys are one of 5 programs that or 5 communities that we admitted into the program in early 2020. So with that, I'll turn it over to Keegan.
Thanks, Taylor. There we go. So yeah, just kind of looking at, as we're hopefully coming out of the COVID pandemic here, it's been really hard on businesses and main streets across the country, in Montana as well. I've been, really struggling with, business closures early on and, the uncertainty of, what's the future going to look like and changes in kind of your local dynamics and your local consumer base. And but now it feels like, if we were having this talk a year ago, the question would have really been, staying afloat, surviving, how can we keep our business above water? But now, as we're kind of coming out of it, people are vaccinated and, cases are going down. It's really about the questions turning more towards recovery and how can we kind of capitalize on some of the opportunities that have come out of this crisis to improve our business base and kind of get together as a community to improve the business district and our community as a whole. And part of that is kind of, there's been a lot of shifts, especially in the Montana economy, and a lot of those kind of trends that were, I think, happening before the pandemic with, people moving towards remote work and wanting to live somewhere that had a little, more of like the recreational opportunities and things like that being the draw to an area, not just job-based, and things like experiential business opportunities and things like that being, more the focus of a downtown. We really saw those kind of accelerate and people trying to, capitalize on those. And I think we've just seen those trends across the board kind of accelerate, especially in Montana and places like Flathead County where, home prices have skyrocketed. I think it's an indicator of that, with kind of the Zoom town being a term that's thrown around in terms of, people that can join a Zoom meeting from anywhere and work from home, looking for new places to live. And so that's kind of shifted some of the demographics and, the consumer base in local economies. And as we recover, something we're going to have to consider is, how can we adapt to these new changes and respond? And also, there's been a lot of federal stimulus funding pumped into the economy, and so our question for businesses and local governments is how can we capitalize on this once in a lifetime resource of funding to improve our downtowns and support businesses. So I'll pass it back over to Taylor.
Yeah, and so as we were brainstorming kind of what we wanted to chat with you guys about, we thought about kind of bouncing back on 3 different levels. And so kind of turning to the first level, which is what we think of as the Main Street business. So when we're thinking about bouncing back at like a local business level, from what we've seen with other communities that we work with across Montana, and then also looking at communities across the United States as part of this national Main Street network, we knew even before the pandemic, and we think that this was heightened during the pandemic, that online sales and sales at big box stores is unfortunately increasing. That's just kind of one of the realities of these times. But that that is kind of a unique opportunity for Main Street businesses, because really what we found is that people are looking for these kind of like unique, local, experiential businesses where they can feel like they're experiencing, where they're buying not only like a product, but also an experience and experiencing a place. And so as we've chatted with businesses across Montana and again across the United States, ones that seems like they're bouncing back really well are ones that are embracing that kind of experiential aspect. So they're thinking about incorporating events, classes, tastings, music, musical kind of events into their commercial space. And so they become not only a store, but a venue. And especially, as Keegan mentioned, as people are becoming vaccinated and they're wanting to like return out into the world, we're seeing that that's kind of really kind of propelling some small businesses forward. For example, here in Helena, one of the local bookstores is offering kind of small events, wine tasting, stuff like that, to kind of encourage people to come back out. They were open for business, stuff like that. And another trend that we've seen has been that small businesses have learned kind of from some of the things that came out during the pandemic on, again, just a kind of real local level in terms of their own business. So if they didn't have online retail, maybe they took some time to build that out during the pandemic, or maybe they, were forced to close down for a little bit and use that time to kind of refine part of their business plan. So we've seen also that businesses at that local level, again, are doing really well when they're building off of kind of those lessons that they were unfortunately forced to learn during the pandemic. So then I'll pass it back over to Keegan to talk about the business ecosystem level.
Start zooming out to, your business ecosystem, and really, especially in a place like the, downtown Folsom, that kind of historic commercial district. I think something we've seen across the board is communities that have kind of come together as a business community and, work together, and how can we deal with this pandemic, and, what things can we do to support each other. I think we've seen a lot of success in those areas, and as we look towards kind of recovery, people are looking to keep that momentum, and seeing the value of coordinating between the business community and the business community coordinating with the wider community efforts with the city, with local nonprofits, organizing things like, buy local campaigns and reopening events now, to really keep the momentum, or, grow momentum, kind of announce we're back open for business, and, our commercial district is a destination. It's not just, individual businesses. We are a collection that has a draw, and, we're a commercial destination. And I think, communities working, when the business community can work together collaboratively, you can create that kind of vibrancy and help further some of those projects that support all your downtown businesses. So whether that's events or streetscaping improvements, or adjusting business hours to more reflect, the needs of consumers, that's something that we're seeing communities, when they form a kind of a business district working group, really being successful. And also, as we're coming out of the pandemic, we've seen a lot of unfortunate business closures. There's been a lot of, business owners that have retired, and I think the pandemic has accelerated some of those trends with, long-term business owners looking to retire and transition, and also changes in kind of the consumer demand with new people coming into our communities, and, they're bringing maybe different experiences that they're looking for in a downtown, and so making sure that as a business community we can kind of coordinate and fill those gaps and capitalize on the new business opportunities. So then I'll turn it back to Taylor.
Okay, and then kind of the third level that we were thinking about is bouncing back at a community-wide scale. And so as Keegan mentioned, it is a pretty unique opportunity right now, somewhat of a daunting opportunity. Hopefully we'll never have to go through another pandemic. And there may never be stimulus funds that are coming down from the federal level to states like Montana and communities like Folsom that we'll see in our lifetime. So we think that this is a really unique opportunity with ARPA funds that are coming out. And then also we heard that you guys potentially have some TIP funds at the local level that might be looking for uses as well. And so a lot of the communities that we work with across Montana are thinking about big projects on that community level in terms of bouncing back. And so we've talked to certain communities that have potentially like a vacant building downtown about creating like an incubator space. We know that there's so many like small businesses that have kind of popped up in people's garages during the pandemic. And so maybe they're thinking about creating some sort of space downtown where those folks could rent out a chunk to kind of get their business off the ground for fairly cheap. Similarly, since some of us are still working from home, a lot of communities are starting co-working spaces. Again, a great way to kind of use vacant space downtown and make sure that you're getting people back down in that downtown district and kind of brightening that up. We also have communities that are using or thinking about using like vacant lots and stuff like that for potentially like food trucks that maybe would come once a month. You know, they would string out some lights, bring out some picnic tables, and that would kind of be like a pop-up food truck shop, and then also, or you know, situation, and then also kind of get people back down into that downtown area. Again, let people know that you're open for business. We have other communities that are thinking about like streetscaping, murals, and pedlets. Pedlets are those things in the second photo. They kind of bump out the sidewalk and provide for outside dining. Again, just things that potentially could be implemented with our TIF funds that make your downtown feel more vibrant, more open for business, get people down there and want to spend time in that space. And then kind of on another level, we have communities that are thinking about potentially using some of these floating funds for second floor housing. I know there's not a ton of that going on in Folsom right now in terms of like potentially vacant second floors that need to be used for housing. But we also have other communities that are talking about infill development. We know that affordable housing is such a hot issue right now in so many of our communities. And so those are another kind of big type of project that communities are thinking about in terms of ways to kind of innovatively spend these once-in-a-lifetime funds in a way that makes our communities more unique and resilient and kind of set up for the future. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Keegan.
Yeah. So kind of looking ahead, we just wanted to kind of leave you with a couple parting kind of questions. As you're looking at, as a business community, how can we come together on the road to recovery? Kind of looking at, what are your goals for the downtown commercial district, and how can we leverage some of these funding opportunities that we have to bounce back stronger and more resiliently? So ending with that, we'll just open it up for questions now.